unity,
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
one mind,
Yeah.
and the willingness to show up for ourselves, right? Lots of people do not have um, understanding of the way things work and the way our system works and how this environment works. And you're coming with the ideology from back home, and that ideology is what you're using to continue think that they are going to it's going to work. But we know when you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do.
Hello, beautiful viewers. Welcome to another glorious episode of the Nana Yaa Yeboaa podcast, where we dive into deep conversations that inspire, challenge, and empower. I'm your host, Nana Yaa Yeboaa, and today we have a truly remarkable guest, Roberta Quansah. Roberta,
Yes.
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I just first of all want to thank you and commend you for your great work and starting conversations in our community and inspiring all of us to really have dialogue, communicate with each other, and really learn from each other. So it's a great opportunity for me to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being here with us, taking time as a mother of two out of your busy, busy schedule. So, guys, if you don't know Roberta Quansah, Roberta is a community builder, community leader. She is a passionate advocate for accountability and growth. So, in this episode, my intention is to discuss leadership with her, the power of community, and the importance of holding ourselves accountable, also to explore the current state of Ghanaian Canadians in Calgary as immigrants or and children of immigrants into this country, the future of the community and what needs to be done to foster progress. So I know you gave me a little bit about you, what you do, but I will let you give the audience, our audience, my audience who are privileged to get to know you on this podcast, who you are, what you do, and other stuff.
Okay, thank you, Nana.
Yes.
So, as Nana said, my name is Roberta Quansah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Professional wise, I work in supply chain in the public sector, and I've also worked in supply chain also in the private sector as well. Um, Also, I am the founder of AEJ Foundation, and I founded AEJ Foundation the peak of the pandemic as a way to encourage our young ones to get into the area of STEM. And also, one of the other reasons why I did it was also to inspire our brothers and sisters who are looking to transition careers, especially those who lost their jobs during the pandemic and were looking for a job that is going to be much more pandemic friendly in the future. So these are one of the two main reasons why I founded AEJ Foundation. And this was since June of 2020, and we are in 2025 and we're still going. I'm also the president of Fancy Association of Calgary. That's a position I've held for about 8 months now. Um, and then also, Nana, as you know, I also ran for the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Calgary. I ran for president. Unfortunately, I did not win, but I'm still very passionate about the work that I do to really build my community.
Yes. So I think when you speak about the AEG Foundation, it is even critical at this point in time with the changing dynamics in EDI, in the economic system, and whatnot. One of the things I was thinking recently about reskilling or finding another micro skill to add to. So I think it's still relevant right now as society is changing and things are changing. People, if you listen, I encourage you to reflect on your role in leadership and community building and how you're showing up, because where can you improve? So remember, you can take notes and don't forget to share your thoughts with us after this episode. So before we dive into the nitty gritty and the details with Roberta Quansah, please subscribe and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear from us. Your support helps us grow and continue these important conversations. Roberta,
Yes, yes.
Okay. Mm. So Roberta and I go way, way, way back, but we haven't connected like this in a very, very long time. Almost 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades. Yeah,
Almost two
definitely.
decades.
Yeah.
Yes, we grew up around the same area, Weston Road and Shepherd. I think either I was at the tail end. No, the last time we spoke, I had was in 2008.
Yeah.
So, which means I had my daughter around that time then,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
you went off to school, and you've become this glorious, passionate woman. I see transforming lives, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so glad that you've become this beautiful woman. Thank you
Thank you,
for
Nana.
all you do. Yes.
Thank you, Nana.
So let's talk about your leadership, because everything you're doing from founder, that means you leading, and um also running all these skills program. Let's talk about leadership. How do you handle all these responsibilities, and what are some of the challenges you faced, and how did you come by solutions as a woman in these positions?
Thank. So this is such a loaded question, but I'm just going to
It
take it
is.
by. It's a loaded
Yeah.
question, but I'm going to take it bite by bite.
Yes.
So for me, one of the things that I will fully disclose is I'm a very, very, I'm a woman of faith, and my inspiration really comes from the story of Nehemiah. And sometimes one of the things that I learned from Nehemiah is that when Nehemiah saw so many things going wrong in his life and around him, even though he had a better position, he still decided that, you know what, I am sitting here in this palace, and the walls of Jerusalem are destroyed. What can I also do to rebuild this wall of Jerusalem? How can I get my people together so that together we can build, rebuild what was ruined? And that's where I drive my inspiration from. And for me, when I see my as a lead, when I the way I see myself as a leader, I see myself as a transformative leader. I want to inspire others. I want to influence others to become the best versions of themselves. I don't want to I don't want I don't want to be a leader just so that I tell people what to do. I'm a leader because I want to inspire people to use all their gifts, their talent to be the best that they can be, right? So my leadership, that's how I lead, right? And one of the things about me is I also love to solve problems, right? And I think that every leader, if you don't have a problem you're solving, then you're not a leader.
Mm,
You should always have a problem you're solving, and you should always be driving change in whatever capacity you are. And then one of the things also, when I look at leadership, most people always want to have titles
mm,
before they feel like, oh, now I am this, I've been given this title of this, so now I can actually do something. No, we can all be transform people's life, we can all make changes, we can all solve problems by making the decision to take a lead on it, right? As you I was thinking about coming to this podcast. Rosa Parks came to my mind. I'm like, what came into her mind that she decided that today I'm not going to sit at the back of the bus? And a thought came to me, like, because she made that personal decision that she wants to change. She wants a change in the atmosphere. She wants a change in her circumstance. She wants a change that will impact others, right? So for me as a leader, that's how I see myself. Impact, causing social change. Some would say social justice, and then also driving that change by inspiring others to also take on those mantles.
mhm.
I don't want to be the only one to do it. I want all of them to come along with me.
Yeah.
That's usually the word I use. I want everyone to come along with me.
Mhm. Wow. So you're dealing with you are the president of the Ghanaian the Fanti Association in Calgary. Even the is loaded. So we all understand leadership often comes with challenges, and can you share moments in your journey that tested your leadership and how you overcame it?
I think one of the biggest challenges sometimes when it comes to leadership is, you know, especially us coming here at a very young age, right? And then having to live in both cultures, right? Living in the Canadian system, school in the Canadian system,
Yeah.
and then also having to be part carrying on your culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest challenges sometimes when you want to do something that is very drastical and different from the way our culture sees it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or our elders perceive it, because then they turn to, you know, they don't understand, and that understanding leads to conflict. And as a leader, that's one thing that you have to be able to, it's always going to come. There's always going to be that conflict where you're trying to push the group towards something, and then there's misunderstanding. And for me, how I deal with conflict is always having that conversation, getting people to understand the perspective that I am coming from, and also listening to their own perspective and coming to a common goal. Okay, this is where we want to go. We want to move from Accra to Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go from Accra to Tamale. Why do you want to go there? Right? And why do I want us to move from Accra to Calgary? Finding that common ground, listing what is the benefits, what's the advantages, and really having that dialogue and say which one is going to make us move forward so that we achieve the goal that we want to achieve, right? And and really conversations and discussion and is really one of the things that I use to overcome some of these challenges, because it is very easy, especially when it comes to our culture. It is easy for you to sweep things under the rag and say, oh, they don't want to come along with me, so I'm just going to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
No, for me, what I see is how do I convince them to come to where I want us to go, right? So really, conflict is one of the major thing, right? And other than conflict too, there's also a lot of misconception,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to our community.
Mm-hmm.
There are there's something that some people are in abroad, but abroad has not gone through them. That is true, Nana. No,
I fully understand what you say, and that
yes,
is why I am laughing.
yeah. So they could be here 40 years, right? They could have been here 40 years, but they have not done anything to change themselves. It's like they still just came from wherever
Let's
they
pause for 1 second. There's a
yeah.
lot of noise in your background. The water and stuff. Yeah.
Is my oldest. When I told her to get come downstairs, she didn't come. So you please you edit this after. Sorry.
Yes, I will. So you start from the top. I'll cut it out.
Okay. Yeah. So going back to what I said, so some
Mhm.
of us have come abroad, but abroad has not come through us.
Yes.
Somebody could have been here 30 years, 35 years, but they still don't know how the system works. They still don't know how they don't even know something as basic as how our school system work, right? So and they keep on pushing things that they knew from back home or things that they knew growing up, and it's no fault of their own, because sometimes they've never had to experience something, or sometimes they've never had to gone through that situation. So when you're bringing trying to solve problems and bring solutions, it becomes like, okay, why are you doing this, right? Then they start to question, and sometimes if you don't take time, situations I've seen, sometimes people even begin to undermine you,
Yes.
right? And for me, one of they are most of the time they are undermining you because of their lack of knowledge, the lack of exposure, and their lack of experience, right? So that's the lens that I begin to look at some of these challenges, right? Instead of being very critical, I begin to look at it from that lens. Why is the person undermining my leadership?
Mhm.
Is it because they don't understand where I want us to go? And how can I bring them along? Right? By having that conversation with them and really understanding their own perspective and getting them to understand my own perspective as well.
I will say, Roberta, you have more patience than I do when it comes to community. And I always say I have done my share of community work in Toronto from, being a representative years back. for the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Nurses,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is defunct because it always got to just a key people, 5 or 6 people driving it. And because some of us had conflict with the leadership, then I wouldn't say conflict because I think some of us, myself included, we have foresight. So you think 5, 10 years ahead of time, and that's how you plan in. And when the leadership doesn't have that, there become a power struggle, which in my case, the that was not the intention, but every time I put forth something, I realize that they take it personally. They don't see the what I'm driving at. So, and I laid back, I pulled back because I know me. So I pulled back, and then things fell apart. But also, even working with the group in Ghana first for ages, then I had to step down, like you said, because of undermining, which was very quite serious, and greed, and amongst other stuff. So that is why, for me personally, I pulled out of a lot of our community stuff that I'm no longer interested. However, I'm interested in supporting people
You're
like
laughing from
yourself who
afar.
I'm laughing from afar.
You're laughing from afar.
Yes, I am interested in supporting people such as yourself who are doing the front end job, because maybe myself and others might have not gotten that support consciously, but the generations is also changing as to leadership. We have more people in leadership now than when your parents, my parents, kind of leadership. So I'll say I'll recommend commend you on what you're doing. Keep it up.
Well, Nana, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You and I are quite similar
Mm-hmm.
in nature because I am a very big vision person
Yeah.
as well. I'm a transgenerational thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and and that's really one of the main reasons why I founded AEJ, right? How do we prepare the children of the future for the jobs of the future,
Yeah.
right? And not just the jobs of the future, jobs that will help them become part of the decision making in our cities, in our communities, and in our country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a vision that I've been struggling to sell to my community. I'll be honest and blunt here, Nana.
Mm.
Most of the people who come to my programs are not Ghanaians. I just wanted to just so the whole idea in the beginning was to really obviously help my own inner community, right? But one of the things that I found was, you know what, they are not ready for this, right?
Yes.
They are not. But then i it didn't stop me because every time I had something happening, there were always someone who was there with their child or somebody who was there to take advantage of the opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
as a result, that's what kept me going,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember last spring we ran a session and one young lady from University of Calgary came to volunteer. We ran the session, we ended in April ending. I was there in May when she tested me. Oh, thank you so much. After volunteering, the company that was there, they called me and they offered me a job. So now I have a job for the summer. Right? This person is not Ghanaian. Do I wish that it would have been one of the Ghanaian youth that I know who could have gotten this opportunity? Yes. Right? But unfortunately, it's not the case. Right? So for me, I have seen myself as whatever I'm doing, it is to drive change, and whoever comes closer will be the one to get impacted. And if you stay in the distance to either undermine or stay in the distance because you don't understand and cannot comprehend why we should be doing this or why we should be pushing this type of change. Hopefully, one day you will wake up and you'll be like, oh, maybe it's time for me to put join, right? And I really understand where you come from when you're saying that it was only 5 people. It's always, there are lots of people who are just audiences. And that's one of the things that I've come to learn in leadership, um, even in the workplace, career wise as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is. only the few who are always pushing, 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 pushing. And then the rest, they're either audiences or some of them are busy planning, plotting to undermine or cause confusion. So it, it's a huge challenge, especially when it comes to us, as Black people. It's a huge, huge challenge. We never look at the end of the goal. What are we going to how is this going to benefit us in the long run? We
Mhm,
want to think about, how's it benefiting me now?
mhm,
How is this making me feel now? How am I eating from this now? Right? And that's where you run into challenges, like, because I remember seeing you as, running the Ontario Nursing Association. I was like, oh, smart idea, right? But if people are looking at that, I'm like, you don't even know all the things you guys could have done, all the lobbying you guys could have done to help. You see, if you see the Filipinos, the things they have done,
mhm,
lobbied, like right now in Abeta, if you're a nurse and you come from Ghana, you can go and write your RN exam.
mhm,
And if you pass, you can try and find a job.
mhm.
Right? But all these things, they are all the backbone of some of these associations. And that's what brings me to this point I made earlier. Some of us don't understand the significance or the impact, whether it's out of ignorance or the lack of foresight, or how sometimes I don't really understand, like, so is it for us to educate,
Mhm.
or is it for us to continuously having dialogue, so we understand that, if we are forming a group, is to empower ourselves and to also bring us to a place where we strengthen ourselves to really have power and influence in the society that we live in. But to be quite honest, Nana, there's nothing, Canada, you cannot do anything unless you are united and you are presenting yourself as a group.
Yeah, and that's one of the key conversations that for years the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario have been trying to have a resource center. Yes, and I will categorically say I'm out of it. So, yes, because at one point I do remember Mokola Agnes. That woman stood ready to support. She put her money organized at a fundraiser. People did not show up. The other guests from the MPs, councillors, and everything came, and we ourselves did
Oh
not
yeah.
show up. We were in parties,
Oh yes.
outdoorings,
Yes.
funerals. We did not show up for ourselves, but other people showed up for us. So if you are not showing up for you to solve your problem, who do you expect to solve that problem for you? So that
Hmm.
segues into our next conversation about
Yeah.
community,
Community.
because what you're doing, right? Communities, it is at the heart of meaningful change. um you being so deeply involved in community, um let, let's figure it out. What are some of the key ingredients that you think we need to build a strong and united community? I asked a
Well,
question and I laugh myself.
I think one of the first things for sure is unity,
Hmm, 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 hmm.
one mind,
Yeah.
and the willingness to show up for ourselves, right? And I know you sighed to be like, "Ah," right? Nana, let's be frank. We are paying the price.
Yes.
This is just honest conversation. I know I left Toronto in 2008. I come almost every year. And every year I've come to Toronto, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Most people, because they live in the environment, so they cannot really differentiate, right? I remember coming in, was it? I was in Toronto last year, but in, I believe, 2023 was summer. So I come almost every summer
Hmm,
or winter. So I came and I was going to see my mom.
hmm.
And I was like, right in front of Pentecost, Church of
Yes.
Pentecost
Hmm,
on our road. I
hmm.
see all these men, women standing there in the middle of the workday. I was like, what's going on here? What are these people doing here? So I went home and I was talking to my mom, like, Ma, why are these people all here?
Mhm.
Like, oh, they are sheltering them. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, they're sheltering them there, right? So our the community shelters are full that the church now has to take on this responsibility of sheltering all these new people. And I mean, I came 2024 and it was still the same. The whole place was packed with people,
Oh,
right? So
I,
we are paying the price,
I
right?
I think I have a little bit backstory to that. There were a whole host of our people stuck downtown Toronto, and our churches and organizations were not doing anything. So somebody, one of our members, community members, sounded the alarm that we go to church doing God's work, paying tithes, doing this, doing that, and there are Black people in need, and we are sitting, not giving a hand, thinking of other people to provide that solution that we can. But just like you said, if nobody had said it, the churches wouldn't have thought about doing this critical, say, God's work and, community responsibility towards our own, giving shelter and providing accessibility and need where it's needed. And we're paying for it. And on that note, I'll let you continue for us paying for it.
I mean, that is just unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate because um, a very good ingredient as community is to strengthen each other. And you cannot strengthen somebody who is stranded, hungry, and thirsty, and has no place to lay their head, right? And and that is where we also lack the strength. And if you don't have the strength, you don't have the assembling of each other, right? Which brings us back to togetherness, so,
Yeah.
and unity. If
Mhm.
we are not in one accord, we don't have one vision that is driving us, we are always going to lag behind. And one thing, anybody listening to me, the moment you make a choice not to represent yourself,
Mhm.
if you have a child, you're not representing your child. You're not representing your future when you're old as well, right? Now, I don't know if you heard that the Indians are going to be building their own old folks home in Brampton.
I haven't heard, but then I will also not be surprised
There's
about
actually,
that.
I've seen
Yes.
the whole building. What they're going to serve their own food, everything.
Yes.
You can look into it, right? So if you choose not to represent yourself now, you are not representing yourself when you're old, and you're also not representing your children. You're also not representing your grandchildren, right? So really, when it comes to community,
Mhm.
we need to create a sense of belonging. We need to create support for one another, right? We need to, and we see this. These people, some people, they go to the bank, they have their brothers there, the sisters there, they help them figure out how to get a loan. They help them how to figure out to start, write a business plan to start their business and build businesses that is sustainable, not businesses that you build, then the next you know, you change five hands,
Mhm.
right? So all of these togetherness and representation
Mhm.
is driven through this. And I look at how our communities suffered severely during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We had no representation.
Yes.
And up to today, we've not even sat down, right, and debriefed ourselves and say, and have any lessons learned. We've not done any lessons learned to see how we are going to be able to move forward, right? So when you ask me for the ingredients, for me, one of the key things is unity. The
Mhm.
second thing is representation. How do I represent myself? In my workplace, do I represent myself? Do I represent my community? Do I represent my own children? And do I represent my future? Because most of us are so content with what we have. And that's the reason why you see people always putting, you know, um, self gratification. I want to be happy now,
Mhm.
not I want to be happy continuously,
Yes.
right? So when big visionaries like us, when people like us who want to really do big things and transform our community further, it becomes a huge challenge, right? So unity, having one mind, all of us mobilizing towards one goal, right? You mentioned something like community resource center. Do you know that Somalians are going to have, I believe it's $20 million community resource center right now being built
Mm-hmm.
in Toronto?
Yeah.
And if you look at them, their country is it's not even stable.
Mm-hmm.
We have a stable democracy. We have leaders in our country, and somehow we cannot transform ourselves in the diaspora. And honestly, when we don't do that, we are we are destroying our own legacies. We are destroying our own community, our own children's future, and in our own future. Because at the end of the day, if the Somalians are coming together, the Nigerians are coming together, if everybody else is coming together, do you think that when you are in need, are you now going to go beg them for something? And being in need, sometimes people feel like, oh, being in need means I have to go get food. No, being in need can be something as simple as, going through a difficult situation like, being sick through cancer and then having some sort of support for you, right? Or, going through I to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
I was at a conference last year, and this Somalian girl came and she ran an organization exclusively for new mothers. So
Mm-hmm.
new mothers in her community, when they have a kid,
Mm-hmm.
when they have a baby, she and her group will show up with your first week of meals. They will prepare their local dishes
Mm-hmm.
and they'll come clean and really prepare you, make you feel comfortable at home. And all these things is being funded by you and I, our own tax dollar. You understand? But all these things are not possible if you're not together.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, if you ask me what is the key ingredient, how about we come together? How about we unite? How about we support each other? How about we make everybody have a sense of belonging? Because
Mm-hmm.
now, if you don't feel like you belong, you will not stay around. Would you? Would you stay anywhere where you don't feel welcome?
You wouldn't, and probably that is the reason why I have detached. And also, for me, it was more of exhaustion. Given. I became too exhausted. I didn't have anything more to give. I think my mindset rather became that I need to build me. And I don't regret doing that because I think I gave as much as I could to community. And I'm somehow still giving to community, but on a different way, which is having such critical conversations so that if any person within the Ghanaian community, the African community, the African diasporan
Yes.
community is listening, then we are coming up with solutions for our communities. So this segues into the listeners, anybody and everybody listening. you know I think we need to ask ourselves that what role am I playing in my community? Am I a contributor or just an observer? I wish I could say I'm an observer, but I realize that I'm not an
You're
observer. I'm
not.
still contributing
You're still
somehow.
contributing by having the conversations.
Yes,
And the
yes,
conversations is what we actually need to have,
yes, yes.
right? And if we don't have the conversation in the market square,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And this is the market square, right?
Yes.
How can we transform the change that we want to see,
Mm-hmm,
right? How can people know that being present, being present and representing yourself is
mm-hmm,
the greatest thing that you can do for
mm-hmm.
yourself and you can do for your generation.
Amen. So, this is my call to action for everybody and anybody listening to this podcast. At this moment, I would love for you to take just a tiny step, a small step today, connect with a local community group volunteer, or start a conversation about change. And change is also about transformational leadership, it's about changing yourself. And changing yourself is about changing your mindset to be, how do we call it? Inclusive, which means we need to hold ourselves accountable.
Yes.
My sister,
Yes.
let's talk about
We,
accountability.
yes. You know what? I know you're laughing. We are very bad when it comes to accountability, right? Myself
Mhm,
included,
mhm.
right? Um, I think we need to start taking responsibility for our actions, our decisions, and 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 our lack thereof. There's a saying it's like when you're in a room and something is being discussed, even though you did not contribute, you still contributed.
By being
You didn't say
present.
anything, but your silence is still consent,
Mm,
right? So we need to start taking responsibilities of some of the things that we have done to contribute to the disarray that we see around us sometimes, right? Um, and for me, one of the things I'll come out to say is not getting involved much more earlier in my community. You know, I watch from a distance and I didn't, well, I would say I didn't get involved because I didn't know how,
mhm,
right? I didn't know how. Um, and the moment that I knew how to, it also took me a long time for me to start, be like, okay, what do I need? How do I go about it? And all those things. So having that self doubt where you start thinking, oh, what would people say? Would they even accept my idea? Would it even work? That kind of thing. So going through that phase, right, as well. And then also sometimes, talking about accountability, not showing up, because I would say there are days that I didn't show up either,
mhm,
right? And I didn't show up because I didn't know the reasons why.
mhm.
And I think that sometimes we don't show up because we don't know the reasons why. And I have learned right now that if I don't know the reasons why, I should ask why. So if you're listening to us today and you don't know the reasons why you have to show up for your community, it's time for you to ask, why should I show up? So that's why I am taking my own accountability, right? And the other ways where I've been taking accountability is taking actions in where I can, right? So apart from running all these organizations and doing all these things, one of the things I'm very passionate about is our schooling system. So I have taken an active role in being part of my children's parent council board, right? And the reason why I have is before I didn't know, I was like, okay, it's not important, you know. But now, when I started showing up with my chair, right? They said, what? If you're not invited to the table, what do? You bring your chair. So I'm taking accountability by showing up to this, my parent council meeting. And there is where they are making decisions for you, your children. Every time we meet every month, we are making decisions about your children. And there's only a few of us, right? So I'm taking accountability to try and be there as much as I can. I don't always go all the time, but I always make sure I don't miss the most critical days or critical times, right? So that's how I am showing accountability. How can you show accountability?
Mhm,
Let's start taking responsibility on some of the things that we need to do in our community.
mhm.
As a mom, we are busy. As
Yes.
fathers, we are busy. We have so much things that is happening, but we can take responsibility for the things that is happening in our children's schools, the things that's happening in our police forces, the things that is happening in with our city councils, the things that's happening with our mayors, our federal MPs. One thing that we want to remember is that those people, they work for you, but they are not going to be accountable to you when you choose to isolate yourself, when you choose not to be like, if somebody is working for me and then I don't supervise their work, I'm not being accountable. As a parent, if I'm not overlooking the things that's happening in the lives of my children, then I'm not being accountable. It is nice that you want to, yes, we want to work two, three, four jobs. It's nice. So we can have that nice car, that nice house, all of those 9 yards, right? By the end of the day, you have to sit down and have that self reflection. How is running around and doing all those things, how is that going to bring change, impact positively
Mhm.
to my family and then to my community? Because one thing is that stronger families build stronger
The
communities.
communities. That's right. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So some of us, the accountability even had to start with our family. How strong is your family unit? And then do you know that whatever your kids see you do, that's what they're going to do? It's no joke.
No, it's very true what you said.
If you
As
party, your children are going to party too. They're not
yes,
going to, you cannot tell. Remember, Nana, when we came, they said, Mom, we go to school, go to school, go to school. We brought you here to go to school. We brought
yes,
you here to go to school. We came, we had to hustle, we didn't go to school.
yeah,
And Nana, we know there are some people who came to Canada and still figure out a way to still pursue an education
yes.
as adults.
I will share with you one lady's how do we call it story. When I was a first year student at U of T, I remember this lady actually coming through the transitional year program. At one point, she was heavily pregnant. She was a Ghanaian woman, heavily pregnant. Then the program finished, got into university. Right now, I think she has a master's in social work or whatnot. That kid is a young man right now. So there was another Ghanaian woman with 5 children when she came into the program, and she also finished her degree. So when I look at these incredible Ghanaian women who worked their asses off to get a degree or degrees and become comfortable, it's really amazing. So there are those that took opportunity that was given to them. And there are so many that never, most especially where you and I grew up within that area.
That's accountability.
Yes, yes.
Because you cannot tell your kid to go to school when you yourself never put in an effort to, do anything.
Do
So
anything.
these two ladies that you're talking about, when they tell their kids to go to school, their kid know what it means. Because guess what? Mom did it.
As a matter of fact, she was starting. Daughter was already in university or
There
so.
you go.
So both of them were going to school. Like sometimes, one time I went with my daughter out. She is 16, going on 17, and she said she was going to get something, and so I gave her money. She went to Indigo and she got books. And when she showed it to me, I started laughing because I realized that my love for books has. She's not an A student, but at least I know that if you read, you're open to learning. The grades, yes, it matters sometimes, but you have that mindset of absorbing knowledge from, how do we call it, all over.
You know, this is actually, I know this is a side conversation, but somebody could be listening because you talked about this.
Yes.
If you're a parent and you're listening to me,
Mhm.
I want you to know when it comes to your child, right? And me like interacting with kids now exclusively. Before I was actually started my program, I was actually
Yeah.
teaching kids math as well through this
Mm,
Indian program. Um,
mm.
one of the things about our kids, they all learn differently and articulate their learning in different ways. So
Yes.
they could be not so academically inclined, but there are some areas in their lives once they start exploring themselves that you find out that they are so good at,
Yes.
right? So it's always best to allow them to explore. Like this one, she's reading. Who knows? Maybe she might just be a writer like you. That will probably be the only thing that she has to do. Maybe so it is just getting to understand all these different aspects of ourselves. That's also one of the reasons why I'm very passionate also about that career transitioning. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
might be in a career where you just become so stagnant and you're just going because it's what you need to do, right? Maybe, but you could really sit, assess yourself and find out there's actually a career that will end up paying you more money,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually feel more fulfilled
fulfillment.
every
Yeah.
day. And this might not be a career that you hear of every day that people are doing, right? Because sometimes it's very common that you hear people are nurses, they're doctors, or they're this, but it could be something that people could be doing that sometimes is even just like 2 year diploma,
Mm-hmm.
right? That make more money than nurses or
Mm-hmm.
make even more money than engineers or something, right? So that self exploitation exploration is also very, very important. Finding the little things that we really love and do, and how finding the alignment
Mm-hmm.
with that in terms of career wise as well, right? I know this was not what we wanted to talk about, but I believe it's
No,
also part of the
it,
accountability.
it is. It is because at the end of the day, we're talking about life. We're talking about life transitionings and finding ways. And you have done it. You did not start from here, but as time goes on, you have, opened up to possibilities and thought about giving people the platform to also make transformational changes in their lives. And look at all that wisdom you're spewing out to me. Yay. So, like you're speaking with so much passion. So this is my call to everybody listening to us, that you got to figure out what fuels your passion. And if you don't know that yet, I do believe that you may need to take a time or two to explore what truly excites you and drives you. Like behind me, you see a couple of three little paintings on that on the corner, and that is my one of my passions that I do, and it's really for my mental health. All these paintings are for my mental health. It's nothing big, nothing whatnot, but it truly delights me. And I just finished it this morning and I hanged it. So you need to figure out some stuff for yourself and delve into it and see where it takes you. Um, so what's the current state of our community? Because I know you were running for its presidency, its leadership. And however, you didn't get elected, and you did use a word that you say popular. Is it popularity? Yes. Um, let's talk about some of our challenges and our strengths, because popularity does not necessarily mean leadership, right? Having that leadership qualities, being known all over, doesn't mean you have that leadership qualities to actually create a transformational change in community. Your thoughts?
Well, for me, okay, so right now, I would say I'll use this platform really to introduce you to our outgoing president. You will love him, Nana. His name is Dr. Charles Odami Ankara.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles came to Calgary, um, I think about a decade ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he became the president. He came to University of Calgary to study.
Mm-hmm.
The and then eventually he became the president of Ghanaian Association.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to commend him. In his 6 year tenure, he was able to get us a place. So we do have a community place or gathering here in Calgary where we host, and that actually provides me a space for me to host some of my workshops as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all through his hard work. Charles is a very, very big and visionary person. He's a big thinker. And he's really brought our community a very long way. I mean, you and I grew up in Toronto, and we never had a place where we can say it of our own. But Charles made that happen within the 6 years that he was president. So I'm really proud of the work that he's done in our community. Um, and the thing with Calgary is that Calgary does not has a different dynamics than Toronto. With the reason being, there's a lot of white collar
Mm-hmm.
and blue collar
Jobs.
Ghanaians.
Ghanaians.
Okay.
Okay.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
But what has happened in this last recent years, due to the same challenges that Toronto is facing, is we have a lot of influx of Ghanaians coming from all over. And with that, that's a challenge that Calgary, I don't believe Calgary has ever faced, because most Ghanaians who came to Calgary came here either to come to school or
Mm-hmm.
they came because of a job they got in oil and gas. So our main job here is oil and gas. Um, so most of them came and they're just coming in and just really jumping into work,
Mm-hmm.
literally, right? But now we are currently in a place where We are facing challenges of people coming in, not even having accommodation. We've had lots of students, and you know how this whole thing is going with that.
Yes.
So we have what I call emerging issues.
Mhm.
And these emerging issues are things that, and then we also now have a new generation of Canadian born Ghanaians. And that also has its own emerging issues, having a sense of belonging, sense of community, having a sense of a place where you can call your own, right? So these are some of the few driving forces that push me to want to run for president of the association.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, as I said, there are many things playing in the background that I don't want to discuss them here,
Mhm.
um, because I believe all of them eventually will play itself out. That prevented me from
Mhm.
getting to where I want to be. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it's not shutting me out, because one of the things for sure I am passionate about, I remember I told you earlier that I'm a transgenerational leader, right?
Yes.
I am passionate about our youth. I'm passionate about their future, because Nana, you and I both know what happens when our youth don't have a sense of purpose, when they don't
Mhm.
have a sense of belonging, when they don't have what to look up to, right? We see where they end up in. We've seen what has happened to some of our young ones on the streets of Toronto.
Yeah.
And when we go into our institutionalized systems, the things that is happening there, right? So when I look, I always say to people, when I look at Calgary now, Calgary reminds me when we first came to Toronto.
Mm.
It wasn't that bad, but as things get neglected in the community, was not held together properly,
Mhm.
we ended up in the phase where things has moved from bad to
To
worse,
worse.
right? And that's also one of the things that drove me to wanting to run for president, to try and continue in the vision that Charles has started and
Mhm.
build on from there
Mhm.
as well, right? Because he's gotten us a space. Now, what are we going to do with it? What are some of the things that we're going to use to, bring in the needs, the community needs, and providing services that will really build our community? And there's one thing that somebody said to me, because initially I was not really willing to do it. Um, is the engagement piece, and talking about one thing that I forgot to mention as an ingredient of community building is engagement.
Community engagement.
Community engagement.
Mhm.
You don't And community engagement is one, but stakeholder engagement
Engagement. Mm.
and advocacy,
Mhm.
right? And that's one of the things that has really drawn us back, mostly Ghanaians, as community. um and I want to just share this story with you. Do you know that because I work in supply chain,
Mhm.
I'm exposed to a whole lot, lots of things. Okay. In my former job, um, one of the things I discovered is that the Chinese, the Chinese consulate embassy here in Canada,
Mhm.
one of their main job is to have someone who push Chinese company products into the Canadian market.
Mhm.
So imagine our consulate general in Ottawa. We have somebody there pushing Ghanaian products to make sure all Ghanaian products end up in all the Loblaws company grocery chains. That is their responsibility.
Mm.
So when it comes to engagement so you not only engage within your community, you engage with other stakeholders to bring resources back into your community to help with the building. One of the things I see is that most of the time when we have to do things, you mentioned something, it's like you give, and you become exhausted. But now you don't have to give. If we have the right visionaries, what we should be doing is engage until we deliver, right? That's what we have to do, right? And um, and unfortunately, as I said, a lot of people do not have um understanding of the way things work and the way our system works, and how this environment works.
Mhm.
And you're coming with the ideology from back home, and that ideology is what you're using to continue think that they are going to it's going to work. But we know when you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do. But you cannot do what the Romans do when you don't you yourself have not even experienced or been exposed or have the knowledge or the skills to be able to deliver on those things, right? And I believe our community have a long way to go in the way we see ourselves and the way we see our community and the way we see how we want to get ahead, right? And when people are not there, it is hard.
Yes.
When people are not there, it is hard. I mean, Toronto, we are not even close,
Yes.
right? At least I can say Calgary, we have a place where we can, thanks to Charles and his executives, that we have a place that you come now, you can Google Ghana House Calgary, and there is a Ghana House that you can come, and there's meeting rooms, everything there, right? That we can assemble and do things. Like for me, like Frontier Association, when we need to do something, we just book the hall or we book a room there. We can just go there and have a meeting, right? And that is big thinking leadership.
Mm.
And unfortunately, you as you and I know, not all of us are big thinking leadership, right?
Yes.
So that transformative leadership skills is sometimes can be very intimidating, I find, to our community, right? And I don't know whether it's confusion or misunderstanding. And but I pray that God give us all grace so that we'll be able to understand and see where we can meet them. But that's all I have to say.
Oh my goodness, Roberta, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. But before we wrap up, if you could leave our listeners with one key message about leadership, community, or accountability, what would that be?
So my key message to everybody is that if you don't represent yourself, somebody will represent you.
Amen.
And if somebody represents you, they will represent you based on their own view
Mhm.
of the world and their own interests.
Yes.
Nobody is ever going to push your interests. So I encourage everyone. There are so many ways where you can get involved. Get involved politically. You know, if you're not a registered member of a party, start thinking about being one.
Mhm.
If you're working in your workplace and there's a union, think
Mhm.
about joining to become a steward or whatever it is.
Or a rep.
Get to understand the system,
Mhm.
right? If you have children in the school, encourage them to be part of their student union or be part of whatever student leadership that is there. Out of the whole year, if you're a parent, take some time and go to your parent council meeting. If you it's they have it every month. So if you just go twice in a whole year, at least you are there. You are
Mhm.
representing your values, right? Nobody can represent yourself as you can represent yourself, right? And then also let's open our minds to start thinking outside the box. See what other people are doing and ask yourself, how did they do it? And how can I also do it? You don't need to find ways to undermine them. You don't need to find ways to bring them down. You know, Nana is running a podcast. Nana, how did you do your podcast? How did you get all these, right? How can I learn from you? Can I volunteer with you, right? So how can I help you? Do I have to share? Do I have to tell my friends to post it on my social media? What can you do to help expand the community, right? Because one of the things is that every inaction, there's still a price to pay.
Yes.
And the price, you can pay it now, or you can pay it later, or it can be paid by your children's children, right? And above all, let's be united, right? United in our homes because stronger families build stronger community. And if you are not there to build your community, nobody is going to take you serious, right? And I don't mean to get very, we all know the East Europeans, what is happening there.
Mhm.
When they came, they all got money to build themselves. They have them in special program, retraining them to get good jobs. Meanwhile, we've been here and we are struggling. Why are we struggling? Because we are not building stronger community. So I encourage all of us. It doesn't have to be your local association, but it could be something that you could be doing. Get involved, whichever way that you can. right? Whichever way you seem fit, whichever way, look at what Nana is doing. If you want to start a podcast so people can come and share ideas that will help the community, do that. But don't sit idle because your inactions still has consequence. So that is what I will say.
Imagine that 2008 till now. I never knew I would be on a podcast, have this platform, having a conversation with you, Roberta, after all these years. But here we are having conversations about community because it is meant to be. And so, for those who want to connect with you, Roberta, or support your work, where can they find you?
So they can follow me on Instagram and on it's the same handle on Instagram for AEJ Foundation. It's AEJF Canada if you put it on Instagram or on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay. If you just want to just follow me on my own personal Instagram, it is Robbie Love
Mhm,
33, and the love is without an E, so ROBBYLOV
mhm,
33. You can follow me on Instagram. That's where most of the time I post some of the things that I'm having.
mhm,
Sometimes I do have some sessions on Zoom. So especially when it comes to some of our skills and career paths, right? So you can follow me there as well. If you want to reach me to info at aejf.ca.
mhm,
You can also go to our website www.aejf.ca, and you can, if you want to support our work, you can donate. I also have some merch as well, so you can send me an email and you can purchase one of our merch to wear to support us and help continue the work that we are doing in building our community and building the future of our kids as well.
Excellent. So, guys, if you're listening, you better pick up one thing from this conversation because this has been an incredible conversation. So whether it's leading better, engaging in your community, or holding yourself accountable, start now. There is no time like the now, and let's create the change we want to see. Because if we don't start changing for ourselves, it ain't gonna happen, people. It's not going to happen. Roberta, what a powerful conversation. A huge thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us today. And guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps us continue our conversation. Until next time, stay inspired, stay accountable, and keep building strong communities. I've been your host, Nana Yaa Yeboaa, with our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Roberta Quansah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nana.